Welcome to this video tutorial brought to you by simpletut.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create your very own user registration system, complete with a registration page, a login page, and of course an update page, an admin section which includes the ability to manage users, and of course a logout page. I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage you to visit simpletut.com. We provide a range of tutorials ranging from content management to this video, which is about the user registration system, or even e-commerce. For the purposes of this tutorial, I've gone ahead and created a basic layout within Dreamweaver, which I can immediately start building the registration system in. It's going to be very simple in terms of design, but I'm going to basically go through the development part, and then you can go ahead and style your forms and style everything the way you want to post development once you've actually followed the tutorial and developed the registration system. However, we can't do all of this, at least the first step, within Dreamweaver, because as with any registration system or web application, it needs to store that information, and of course you're going to need a database to do that. Now, in terms of development, web developers use testing servers, which are basically servers that we install on our local host computer, and it enables us to develop these PHP applications within our local host computer before we need to actually develop it, post it online. So to set up your testing server, I'm using, my current operating system is Windows 8, so I'm going to be using WAMP server. Now, what I've actually done is I've gone into I've launched my WAMP server, and I have created my database, and right now I'm inside my database ready to create my first table. Now, to slow things down, if you don't know how to install a testing server on your computer, then please don't worry, it's absolutely fine. We have a video on simpletut.com that is a tutorial that follows and goes through step by step installing a testing server on your computer, regardless of whether you're using Windows or Mac, and it covers installing it and also defining it within Dreamweaver, because you may be used to defining a normal site, a static site, HTML within Dreamweaver. If you're going to start using PHP and developing PHP applications, you're going to need to define your testing server in Dreamweaver as well. And of course our tutorial covers that. Now, if you need to find and follow that tutorial, I'll put a link in the description. Alternatively, you can visit simpletut.com and search for the video. Alternatively, if you've already followed along that tutorial, or you've already set up and defined your site, your testing server, then you're ready to go. So the first thing you'll need to do is actually create a database. Once you've done that, you're ready to start following along at this point, which is create your first table. Now, obviously, a user registration system is going to need a place to store users. So the first table I create is actually going to be called users, and initially I'm just going to set up 3 fields and click go. That's going to load this for me. I can name each field, define everything else I need to define. So the first thing we need to do is actually call our first field user ID. Now, you may or may not be familiar with database and SQL, but our user ID field is actually a unique value that is going to be different for every single field within our database table, and it's just going to make sure that every single field in our database is different in some way. So if all the other values were the same, this would be the one that's different. Obviously, the reason we have a unique field is because I'm going to give you an example. If you have a folder on your computer, you can't have 2 files which are the same file format with the same name. they need to be either in separate locations or with different names. Otherwise, the computer will not let you save two files. So for example, two JPEGs with the exact same name. It won't let you do that. So by having a user ID field which is automatically generated, it ensures that we don't have that there's always different unique fields within our table. So I've set that up, user ID. Of course, we're going to need some more fields. So I'm going to put in first name, and we can't have any spaces at this stage, no symbols or anything like that. Just normal characters. So also last name. I'm going to need to add a few more, but I'm going to come back to that. Our user ID is our unique one. We're going to set the type to integer, so we're going to leave that alone. Length, I'm going to set that to 11, and everything else is fine, but we need to set this to auto increment. That means it's going to do that, automatically generate our value for this field, and that's what I explained before. This one is going to be varchar. I'm going to set this to about 32, and our last name is exactly the same. So again, varchar. And we're going to set these both to null, but we're not going to set our user ID field to null. We're not going to do that. This is fine. We're going to click on save, and that's going to create our first table within our database. So we've gone ahead and we've done that, but there are many fields we need to create for this. And that will have created our first table within our database, as you can see here. But the problem is we missed off quite a few fields that I needed to create, because I couldn't guess how many fields I needed. So I'm just going to come back to structure of this table we created. And as you can see, we've just got first and last name. I'm also going to want to have a email, username, and password. So I need another 3 fields. So I'm going to click on, well, I'm going to type in the value of 3 next to add, and I'm going to say at the end of table, and I'm going to say go. It's going to give me another 3 columns that I can create, and the first one's going to be email, the second one's going to be username, and the last one is going to be password. And all of them are actually going to be varchar. So I'm going to set all of these to, I'm just going to set it to 100. It's absolutely more than I need, but just to stay safe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just come across, I'm going to make sure all of them are set to null. And I'm going to click on save. And that's going to go ahead and create all the fields that I need. At this stage, I'm actually ready to go ahead and start developing my registration system within Dreamweaver. Now, right now I'm using Dreamweaver CS6. Now, if you have an older version of Dreamweaver, that's absolutely fine. To be honest, most of the latest versions of Dreamweaver only have very minor differences, so I'm sure you're not going to have any problem following along with the tutorial. As I may have mentioned earlier, for the purposes of saving time, I've just gone ahead and created a very simplistic layout, page design, so I can just go ahead and start developing my system. Obviously, if you're following along with this tutorial, just place your cursor in the page that you want to install your system. So the first thing that I need to do is make an actual connection to my database, and to do that, all I need to do is select database, expand the database panel, and click on the plus sign. And it's going to give me the option for create a MySQL connection. Connection name, I'm just going to call it localhost, and same for my MySQL server. Now, if you have actually created a password for your testing server, which is something I don't personally bother with, because when I actually upload this and it's online and exposed to the world, you actually have to update your connections file to connect to your remote server. Obviously at this stage it's just within my own computer, no one else is going to have access or see this, so I'm just developing it, so it's absolutely fine not to have a password at this stage. That's not something I'd recommend doing once it comes to actually uploading online, but that's virtually impossible. So all I have to do is click on select my database. So all I have to do now is select the database that we created earlier, and the one I called the actual database, not table, the database I created was called user reg tutorial. So I'm just going to select that, and I can test it saying I don't have a password. As I explained before, that's fine, so just click on test again and it says it's successful, so I'm just going to click on OK. And if I come to connections file, you're going to see that all it's done is it's just entered my local host, the database and whatever, and as I explained before, it's absolutely fine. You'll just need to update this when it comes to uploading online. You'd have to do that anyway. Now that we've actually connected to our database, we can actually start developing our system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the template page that I just created, and we're going to call this page user registration. And I'll open up this page, and in here I'm going to create a form, and I'm going to create a table. And table, let's just guess it's about 6 rows, and maybe 1 column. I'm just going to make this about 600 pixels wide, 0 border thickness, and click OK. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come to my forms panel, and I'm just going to insert a text field, and the ID of this is going to be first name. And I'm actually going to make this 12 fields because I want to have a gap between each field, and I'm just going to name this first name, and I'm going to come to the next one and create another text field. This one's going to be named last name. Now when you are naming your IDs, do not put any symbols or spaces. So even though this is last name, I've not put any space between those two. What we do is I'm just going to enter last name above this, and again just do another, this one's going to be an email field, so again very simple, and another one, this one's going to be username. Again, this is very simple, so user name, and then finally password. Now all I need to do is add a button, so I'm just going to create a button, and I'm just going to call this button submit user form, and I can change the value of the button to register. Now I can save this. Now if you'd like to make this look prettier, and I will actually do this now, it's usually something I come back to, all you have to do is go to CSS styles, click on the plus sign, and click on less specific until you just have the file, the text field selected. So all this whole CSS style that you're doing and you're creating right now is going to target this field specifically. And you can be more specific if you want, but I'd recommend you just keep it to each CSS rule for each field. At least that's what I like to do. And you can do anything you want. You can change the width and the dimensions, so maybe make this 200 so it's really obvious what I'm doing. And as you can see, this has changed dramatically. I can add a border to make it look a little prettier, and so that my cursor is not pushed up right against the corner, can add a little bit of padding on the side, maybe 6, and you can even make each other one. Maybe just make that 3, and click OK. And you can do various other things if you want. Even change the font size and font type if you want. And you can do this for each one, but just for the purposes of showing you how to do that, I just wanted to star one field, and as you can see, this is very different to the normal standard fields that you would just insert using Dreamweaver. Now, if you'd like to make this form a little bit more intelligent, I'm going to select the blue that surrounds the email field, and in my properties inspector I'm going to get my Sprite options, and I'm going to change the type to email address, and I'm just going to save that. I'm also going to select my password text field and change it to password. Now these changes will have affected my form, and I'm going to show you how. Now all of these are Sprite fields, so they are all required, but for example, in my first name, if I enter my name and click on register, it goes green, so it's now accepted. If these weren't creating an error on the page or an issue, in this case it's just telling me that these fields are empty and I need to fill them to submit the form. In these cases it just needs a value, whereas in this, as I change the type to email, so if I inserted my name into this field, it has a value, and click register, it's now telling me it's an invalid format. So in this case I need to enter an actual email address. So for example, Ashley at and this is just a made up address, let's say Ashley at youtube.com. That's an email format, and I can click the submit and it will now accept it. The change I made to the password field means that each value of this is hidden. Now this means that when someone's creating an account, they're more protected, which is something that is beneficial and makes people feel more comfort when registering with your site. Now, although I've actually created a form, it's not going to do anything. I need to make it actually store the information that has been entered into this form. I need to store it in my database so that I can use it to log users in, to update users' information, and to restrict access to the site in general. Now, to make this form actually submit the information to my database, the first thing I need to do is create a record set, and to do that I need to expand my bindings panel and select the plus sign and select record set query. That's going to immediately open up this new window once it's loaded. And it's going to allow me to enter a name for this record set. So what I'm going to call this record set is register users. And it's selected the connection we created earlier, so it can see all the tables in my database. Right now I only have one, so that's the correct one. I may need to select certain fields, but obviously in this case I'm just going to select all because it really doesn't matter. And because I'm not showing any information on the page, I'm just putting it into the database. I don't need to worry about filtering or sorting anything. So okay, I'm going to click on OK because I've done that now. And that's gone ahead, created the record set. I could save the page, but I could also come into my code view and I can see the database. Yeah, well, I can see the record set in there, but that's a bit unnecessary. So let's come to our server behaviors panel, and this is where we're going to actually define what happens with the information inserted into the form. And to do that, we just have to select insert record. And what that's done is it's selected all the form on our page. Now if you had multiple forms on the page, you need to select the form that we've created, and that's why it's probably good to give your form an ID, which is something I didn't do before, but it would make it more easy for you to keep everything sort of easy to find on your when developing. So I would recommend doing that, and I should have done, but I forgot. Okay, so the connection again is localhost and the table is users. That's all correct. Now what it's done is it's actually pulled up all the fields in our database. Now, yes, they are the same as on the form, but everything in here is actually on the database. It's not looking at the form. So what we need to do is we need to select the field in the database, so in this case first name, and we need to point it at the form field in our form that reflects that we want to insert into this field. So for example, for first name, what's inserted into first name on our form needs to go into first name in our database. So the value is obviously first name, and it seems to have done it automatically correctly, but you need to check it. Last name is last name, email gets email, username gets username, and password gets password. Now the only thing we need to set here is after insert we need to direct it somewhere, and right now I'm going to actually take this to login.php. Now we haven't created that page yet. You can change this later, but I know I'm going to create this page next, so I'm just going to call this direct it to a login.php page, and I'm going to just click on OK. And that's actually gone ahead, and we can save this, and this is actually going to work. But what I need to do now is I'm just going to duplicate my index page again, the page that's got nothing on it, and I'm going to call it login.php. Make sure everything is spelled exactly the same. So if you did an uppercase L, make sure when you create your file, it's also uppercase L. So make sure it's got exactly the same name. Otherwise it's going to redirect incorrectly. If you need to make changes, or you'd like to change the redirection, just come to your service panel, double click on the insert record, and you can change it at a later date. So there you can go. You can change it at any time you want. So I'm just going to click cancel because I know everything is fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to test this. I'm going to launch this in my browser to show you how it works. So I'm just going to enter some information. So this one is first name test, last name test, email at test.com, username is let's just say username test, and the password is let's just say test. So I'm just going to click on register, and it's taking me to a blank page. Again, this is correct, this is a login page. But now let's come to our database and click on users, and you're going to see that we have a user in our database. So it's worked and it is successful. Again, this is an example of our user ID field. It's created an integer, a value in the field for us. So now we need to create our login page. To do that, it's very simple. We need to create another form. So again, form field. This time I'm going to enter a form ID again. I forgot last time. So let's call it login form. Insert our cursor inside our form and create. What we want to create is a table. So come to common table. I'm just going to leave that at that for now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a form field. So again, this is going to be username. Click on OK, and again just add a name. So user name, and the next one I'm going to create is obviously it's going to be password. Click OK. And of course, as always, we need a submit button. So I'm just going to say login button, and I'm going to change the value to login. Now at this stage, I'm also going to select my password field and click on password to make that, but each one is also required. Now if I launch this, you'll see that we have two fields. One obviously is hidden, and the other one enables us to type, but the form doesn't do anything as always. So what we need to do is we need to come back and come into our server's behaviors panel, click on the plus sign, and we need to select user authentication and login user. And again, the form is correct. It's the form we created. The username field is username, password field is password. Validate on connection for localhost. The table's users. The username column is username, and the password column is obviously password. Now, all we have to do here is define what happens once we've logged in. So if login succeeds, go to, and I'm just going to type in control panel. So, and we're going to type in .php. Again, we haven't created this page, but we're going to. Now, if login fails, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and type in login.php. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to what I will show you is how to display an error on the page and inform the user that their information was wrong, please try again. But I'm going to come back afterwards and show you how to do that. But at this stage, it's just going to return to login.php. This is fine. So let's click on OK. And what we now need to do is launch this page. And I'm going to just type in so the information in our database, what we created, the username was username test, the password was test. So username is username test, and the password was test. Just check that, and you can see that it has worked. We've been redirected to control panel. Now there's a few things that you need to understand before you proceed. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to double click on my control panel, and on the server behaviors I'm going to select user authentication and restrict access to page. Restrict based on username and password. If access is denied, we need to direct them to login, and click OK. Click OK again. Now, if we just launch this page, we are currently logged in. I need to create one more page, so again, duplicate index, and let's call this one Logout. And click on the plus sign. Come to click on the plus sign, come to user authentication, log out user, log out when page loads, and when it's done, I'm just going to redirect this back to, just type it in actually, index.php or whatever page you'd like it to go to. So on the control panel, I'm going to make a log out link, and that's just going to basically link to the logout page. So if I come back here, I believe this is on the control panel, if I reload the page, click logout, and it will have taken me to index. Now if I try to come back, this is on control panel, click on refresh, it's not logged me in, it's taken me to log in first. So if I log in again, so username test, and I just enter my password, it's taken me here, and that's logged me in successfully. So I can tell you that it is working. However, what about if you want to actually have an admin level and a normal user level? This is where you need to actually start getting a bit more complicated. You need to actually have a user level, so an extra session is created. So I'm going to have to come back to my database, and I'm going to come and click on structure. I need to add one more field, and the field is going to be user level. It's going to be integer. I'm just going to change that to 11 as defined, and I'm going to make it a number 0. So anyone with 0 value is going to have a certain amount of access, as, and so on and so forth. So click on save. And there's one thing I just did forget. I'm just going to change. I just need to make sure this cannot be null, so that's fine. Now if I come back to browse, the user I actually already created, the user level the field's been updated, it has 0 in it. But I'm also gonna create a new user. So for first name I'm gonna write admin first name. Last name is gonna be admin last name. Email is going to be admin@email.com. Username is just going to be admin. Password is going to be let's just make it test again, and I'm going to save this and click on go. And if I come back to browse now, it would have inserted another user into the database. But on this user, I'm going to change the user level to 1. Okay? Now every user that registers with your site automatically is going to have a user level of 0. The only user with a different user level is an admin user. It's going to have the level of 1. So I'm going to show you how this affects our system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to our login page, and I'm going to select login user. And I'm going to say username, password, and access level, and user level is going to be user level, and click OK. And I'm going to save this. And now if I come to our control panel, click on restrict access, and I'm going to say username and level. So what I need to do now is I need to define the 2 levels of users. So the first one is going to obviously be 0, and the second one is going to be 1. Now, as you know, I've done that because I'm going to click OK, but the reason I've done that is because in my database, a normal user level is 0 and admin level is 1. Now on this control panel page, both levels of users can access it. So what I need to do now is I need to either highlight the type of user level I want to access this page. Obviously I want both, so I'm going to click on OK, and I'm going to save the page. Now this is a control panel, so this is where everyone's going to be directed to once someone's logged in, user or admin level. I'm going to make a space, separate it, and I'm going to say admin, and this is where we're going to separate the users. I'm going to link this to I'm going to link this to a new page. I'm going to call it let's just duplicate our control panel page, and I'm going to call this one admin, and I'm going to launch this page, click on this, and only select 1. That's the level of admin. You can see how it's changed in our server behaviors panel, and I'm going to save the page, and I'm going to change this. I'm just going to say admin so that everybody can see the difference. And if I come back to control panel, I'm going to link this to our admin page. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to launch this in my browser, and I'm going to log in. This time I'm going to log in as a normal user, so username, and in the password field I'm going to just write in my password and click on login. Oh wait, something wrong there. Username test, and I've logged in. Now right now, if you remember, I've logged in as a normal user, so I'm going to select the admin option, and it's now asked me to log in again. The reason is I don't have the privileges to actually access that part of the site. So I'm going to log in now as an admin. So admin test login. It's taking me to the control panel, click on admin, and it's allowed me to access my admin page. Now why would you do that? Well, it's very simple. You're going to have admin options and you're going to have user options, and you need to restrict access to either or both. And again, all you need to do to restrict access to your pages, server behaviors plus user authentication, and restrict access to page, and obviously in here just select either or both. It's very simple. So I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to come back into my login page actually now. No, I'm not. I'm going to create one more. I'm going to duplicate my registration page, and I'm going to call this update. Okay, so at this stage I've created an update page by just duplicating my registration page and renaming the file to update. But we're going to need to make some changes to actually make this function properly to update our users' information. So I'm going to come to my server behaviors panel, and I'm going to remove the insert record server behavior. Again, this won't affect our registration page. This is our update page. So I'm going to leave the record set alone, but what I need to do is I need to select the record set, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this based on the username. In the URL parameter, username must be spelt the same, and I'm going to click OK. And that will go ahead and update our server behavior for us. But now what I need to do is actually create a link. So on my control panel, I'm going to make a new link. So I'm just going to call this update information, and just get rid of that. Separate them two, and I'm just going to select this update information that I need to make a link. Click on browse and select update, but under here where it says URL, I need to select parameters. I'm going to call this username. Must be spelt exactly the way we spelt it when we filtered a record set. That's very important. And I'm actually just going to let's come back to this, save that. I need to create a record set on this page, on my control panel page, and I'm going to call this record set user, and I'm going to filter this based on the username session variable username, and I'm going to click OK. I can now come back to my update information link, browse, come back to the parameter, but this I'm going to click the lightning bolt, and for my record set I'm going to choose username. Click OK and OK again, and then OK the final time, and I'm going to save it. I'm now going to come back to my update page, and everything's filtered properly, but I need to expand my record set, select the appropriate field, so first name, and drag it to my form element. Make sure everything matches up, so email gets email, username gets username, and password gets password. I need to actually create a hidden field, and this hidden field is going to be called user ID, and I'm just going to select that, lightning bolt, and select user ID from my record set. I can now come to server behaviors and click update record, and you'll notice that this time that the user ID field actually has a value. So check everything matches up. In this case it does for me. So after updating, I'm just going to get this to reload the update page, because I want to show the changes that have been made. So I can click OK. And the final thing I need to do is actually just restrict access to the page. So user authentication, restrict access, because I want to make sure everybody that is on this page is logged in. But it can be anybody that's logged in, because everybody might need to at some point update their information. So I'm going to click OK to that, and that's actually it. So I'm going to come back to control panel and just note that anywhere that you create in your website that links to an update page needs to have that parameter in the URL. So you need to make sure you code that correctly. So let's load this page here and come here, and you'll notice everything is correct. So if I change my first name to Ashley and click on register, it's Ashley, and in the database, if I refresh this, it's updated in the database, and it's not affected any of the other fields, which is very important. Now the one thing I just noticed is that my my button here still says register, which is not correct, so I'm just going to change the value to update, and I'm going to save it, and that's it. Done. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is we need to create a way for admins to manage their users. So I'm going to duplicate the admin page, and I'm just going to call this manage users. I'm going to open up the page, and I'm just going to delete all of that. I'm just going to call it admin user manager. Save it and do a couple returns underneath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. Table is going to be 800 pixels wide and 1 by 1. Okay, center that. Let's also make it about 970. Actually, change my mind. And in here, I'm going to create another table, and this one's going to be 3 by 1. It's going to be only 600 pixels wide, and click OK. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new record set, and I'm going to call the record set manage users, and it's going to be a users table. We're going to filter this by the user level equals entered value of 0, because if you remember from our database, every user with the value of 0 is a normal user. And we're also going to sort this, and we're going to click OK. Now, before I can go any further, I actually need to add one more field to my database table. So I'm going to come back to structure, click on go to add one more field, and this one is going to be reg date. The type is going to be timestamp, and the default is going to be current timestamp. I'm going to click on save. And what you're going to notice in our table is that reg date is added to our field in our database. Right now it's only got it for the admin user, and at the moment it's 000, etc. The reason is because this is created after we set up a reg date, but automatically every time someone registers, the date and time they register is going to be displayed here. And we're going to use it to filter our record set even further. Actually, we're not really going to use it to filter it. We're going to use it to sort it. So we're going to sort it by the reg date ascendings, and you can either change it to ascending or descending. I prefer ascending to show basically the latest people who've registered first. Usually they'd be the ones that you might want to remove from your website. So let's click OK to this, and we can save it. Now we're going to come back here, and I'm going to insert I'm actually going to select my table and cut it, and I'm going to come and add a form, and the form ID is going to be manage users. Put my cursor back inside my form and paste my table back in there, and then I'm going to select expand my record set. In here I'm just going to say user name and drag in, expand my, just the same as we did our form field. I'm going to insert that from the database, and I'm then going to insert a button underneath called delete. Click OK and change the value to delete user. Now what I want to do is I want to select this table, the overall table here, and I'm going to come to server behavior, and I'm going to click on the plus sign, and I'm going to come to repeat region, select my record set for my users, and select all records, and click OK. Then I'm going to click the plus sign again and use the show region, and I only want to actually show this if my record set is not empty. Click OK and save it. Now I'm going to come back to my registration page, and I'm going to launch it, and I'm just going to insert some users. So I'm just going to say test test at test.com, test 1 and test. Click OK, register, come back, and this time it's going to be test 2, test, So if I look at my I look at my database now, I've got 2 users, test 1 and test 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back to my manage users, and I need to make this actually function. I need to make it actually do something. So before I do that, I'm just going to put my cursor by my delete button and create a hidden field, and I'm just going to call this user ID and give it the value from the record set of user ID, and then I'm going to select OK, and from server behaviors I'm going to select the plus sign and select delete user, and all I have to do here is primary key value is defined, so form variable of user ID, localhost users, primary key column user ID, numeric URL parameter, no form variable user ID. After deleting, I just want this to come back to the same page. So again, just show the changes. So manage users again, and then click OK. We're clicking F12. I can see I've got 2 users, so test 1, test 2. Check the database. I've just got test 1, test 2, and admin is not showing as I coded it not to. And if I wanted to delete, let's say test 1, I can click that. All that's here is test 2, and I can check my database, and obviously when I refresh it, all that there is test 2. So that is how I do it. But I want to make sure of several things, of only allowing the user to see the page. You can see that because this is obviously something quite important. It's an important page. And obviously on the admin page now, I want to make a link here which says manage users, and get rid of that link, and I want to put a link to the manage users page. So it's going to come to manage users, and I'm going to save this here. Now at this stage, what you should have is a complete registration system, including a registration page, a login page, and of course if I just log in here, so you should also have an update page and a logout page, but also an admin section. Remember, I'm logged in as an admin, so I showed you how to restrict access to pages, but also to manage users, so we can delete users very easily. And of course also a logout page. At this stage, I'd like to once again invite you to visit simpletut.com. We produce a range of tutorials, all similar to this, step by step. We're adding tutorials every single day, and again, it's completely free. So please head over to our website, browse around some of our tutorials. But as always, please visit the site, like, comment, and subscribe.